So, with The Way Out, what initially drew you to this project?
Uh, the thing that drew me to The Way Out is that it when I first read the script, the role scared me, and that sort of let me know that I had to do it. It's a more intense role than I've ever played before, and it was a role where I saw my ability to be able to push myself and change myself um, to prepare for the role. I took months of boxing classes several times a week because that's important to the character. And then I gained 13 pounds before filming because I thought that the physical aspect of the character was really important. And there were a few other things that I did that I hadn't been able to do for other roles that I've played in the past. And so that's why I accepted Shane.
Nice. So, Shane scared you in a good way.
He scared me in a good way. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Um, did you have to audition for Shane, and what was that process like?
So I first received the script from a friend of mine, Nick Thurr, and Nick is a producer on this film. He and I worked together on a film called Slapface back in 2019, and so he met Barry and got this script, and they first sent the script to me. And I said, you know what, guys, like I don't really connect to the character. I have some thoughts on the story and I'm kind of busy. But here are my thoughts and uh, uh, good luck. And then to their credit, they came back to me a few months later and Barry had done a great job on the script. And so I said, oh, this is really interesting. And then Barry calls me a week or two later, and he said, "Hey, Mike, I've been thinking a lot about it, and I can't see anybody else as Shane. Would you be my Shane?" And I said yes.
That's great. Um, can you explain just a little bit about who Shane is? And then, because you mentioned that he was unlike any role that you've taken before, what kind of went into your mental preparation?
Yeah. So Shane, well, the way out, the story is about two friends. It's a young man named Alex and and then a young man named Shane. And Alex, they were both abused as kids, and they handle that abuse very different ways. Alex turns to alcohol and he sort of abuses himself. Shane turns towards violence and he decides to hurt other people. So it's sort of this interesting examination of the effects of abuse and how people cope with them. And then of course Shane takes it to the extreme with violence and revenge and everything else. Um, and so that's in a nutshell, that's who Shane is. He's somebody that is not afraid to speak his mind, and he's very set on his principles and set in his ways. When he first meets Alex, he tries to befriend him and become almost like a mentor to him, take him under his wing, because he recognizes a lot of himself in Alex, and things are good for a while, and then they take uh, a very aggressive turn, and bad things start happening, and then the end of the movie. I don't want to give it away, but the end of the movie is pretty insane.
It really is. It really is. Was Shane's past and motivation for this clear to you as the actor, like going into this project, like right from the start?
Yeah, so like with any role, when you get a script, there is a lot on the page, but then there's a lot that is not on the page. And for a character like Shane, I sort of made a deal with myself that if I accepted the role, I was really going to go for it, and I was going to show that violence and that rage and that pain, um, with the character throughout the film. But if I did that, I also wanted to show audiences where that came from. So I made a promise to myself that I would focus just as much on the the hurt below the surface, and the vulnerability, and the confusion, and all of those other things that Shane had sort of placed scar tissue over, but things that were still absolutely there, sort of bubbling below the surface. And that, to do that, I had to come up with a fair amount of backstory and of memories for Shane to sort of draw on, and a lot of details that were not necessarily in the script. And a nice thing about working with Barry too is that some of the events of this script are loosely based on his own experiences. And so to have a writer director that trusts you with a story that's so personal to them, and then is also going to be there on set for you to have conversations with and bounce ideas off of and ask questions to, that is really special. And Barry and I definitely had a lot of those conversations of like, where is this coming from? Why is he doing this? What is he trying to get out of it? Things that actors love to talk about. But with Barry, it was just one more level of that, just because the story was so personal to him.
Nice. Have you worked on a project before where you got this much like intimate time with the creator to understand your character?
Hmm. So I have done projects in the past that have been based on real people. I did a film, one of my first films actually was a film called Delirium. It was a group of five friends that sort of go into a haunted house, and it was based on the life of the writer director Johnny Martin. And Johnny Martin is a great guy. He started out as a stuntman, and now he's a successful writer director. And I was playing him in the film, and so to have him on set, was great in much the same way. And then I did a film a couple years ago called Son of the South, executive produced by Spike Lee, directed by Barry Alexander Brown, and that was based on a book called The Wrong Side of Murder Creek. And in that story, I played, um, somebody that was based on a real person. He was a character in this book that he had written about his experiences in the early civil rights movement in Alabama in the 60s. So in that film, I was able to draw upon some of those details too, because I was playing a real person, and that was the first time that I, was playing somebody based on a character in a book. Um, but I say all that to say that in this circumstance, I hadn't had a writer director on set that such intense emotional scenes were based on, and in which emotion that we were playing, uh, that emotion was so raw still with that director. So Barry, where we shot the film in upstate New York, that was around the area where Barry grew up as a kid. And the house where we shot, it was a house very similar to the house where Barry grew up, and where some of these awful things happened to him. And so to be on set with Barry and to sort of watch him go through those experiences while he's watching the takes, and to sort of see how that affected him, that was a first for me, to be going through this emotional journey with the creator of this world and the script and everything, and to have these scenes play out, and then to go on that emotional journey in real time with that person. um, it was really interesting, and it was really, something special.
That's that's great to hear. Is there anything from this experience that you're going to take with you to every other project, that you do from here on out?
Hmm. Good question. I think this film showed me just how far I could push myself and what the magic that can happen when you have people on set that trust each other. Johnny and I developed this trust and this sort of safety net for each other very early on, and we luckily had time to become friends before we started filming. Johnny Bouchamp, who plays Alex, and then Ashley Murray had worked together on a CW show called Katie Keene, and so they already had a friendship, and that I think shows on camera. Their chemistry is amazing. And then Sherry Shepard, came in and was really a team player and spent time to sort of get to know all of us and really have that relationship with Johnny because she plays his AA sponsor in the film. So I think we all sort of had this like safety net of trust, and there were things that happened on set during the scenes, and especially some of the more intense scenes that we didn't really plan. They just sort of happened in the moment. And so one lesson I'll take from this is sort of some of that magic that can happen when actors trust each other and are not afraid to really go for it. And that's what I'll take to other projects.
That's great. Um, for you, what would you say was the biggest challenge that you faced with this filming process?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of scenes in the movie and also some scenes that didn't make the final cut that are very extreme emotionally and physically, and they come from a source of pain and a source of trauma. And so there were some nights where the day before leading up to shooting those scenes, I was so nervous um, that I would be sick and I couldn't fall asleep. And then after we shot some of these scenes, my stomach would hurt and I would feel really shitty. And I think that's a good thing because a lot of that means, we're trying to access those emotions and that trauma and everything in a way that is as real as possible. But it's not like we were shooting a Hallmark movie where everything's happy. It's not like we were shooting you know, another movie where things are less intense. It was a really uh it was a very raw emotional state that we sort of had to keep ourselves in to go to some of the places we go to in this film. And of course, after you do that for, you know, several days in a row, or in this case, weeks in a row, by the end of filming, I was just exhausted. I was just, um, I felt like I had gone through a month of therapy. and, uh, and I feel like that isn't the case on every film. So I feel like that was one of the more challenging, but also one of the more rewarding experiences on this one.
Nice. Was there anything specific that you did, either at the end of the day or at the end of the shoot that kind of helped you like recover and kind of get you back to normal emotionally?
Oh, yeah. Um, so I would try to stay in character as Shane throughout the week while we were shooting, and I would go to the gym actually with Johnny, my co-star, and we would work out together, and I would sort of boss him around, and not as intensely as when we were filming, obviously, but we tried to do our best to sort of maintain that chemistry and maintain that relationship that we had. And then, but on the weekends, I would just sort of check out and be by myself and, maybe go see a movie or go, I spend some time with myself, not as Shane, and I would sort of recharge while we were filming because to be him 24/7 for 3 weeks straight would have been exhausting. So yeah, I did take the weekends, and then as soon as I was done, when I prepare for a role, I sort of keep a journal while I'm that character. So I'll write the character thoughts, I'll write history, I'll write I'll just sort of try to record as much as possible. And then when I'm done filming, I sort of close that journal, and mentally that is me shedding the skin of that character, and I still have it if I ever need to like look up things or um or remember things if we have to do reshoots or obviously for press interviews like this. But typically at the end of a shoot when I sort of shut that book and shut that journal, that is me saying goodbye to the character for now and going back to being Mike.
Gotcha. Um, it is a very intense movie, and there's a lot of like messages behind it. Um, but is there anything that you hope the audience takes away from watching this?
I think that this film and the entire story behind the film is both a cautionary tale and a success story. I think it's a cautionary tale in that we see Johnny, somebody who experiences, a tragedy with his father, and he experiences abuse, and you sort of understand what happened to him throughout the course of the film. He turns to alcohol and hurting himself, and so it's a cautionary tale that if you have trauma and you don't address it, then it sort of can fester inside of you and turn into really awful feelings and awful habits. I think this film and the project as a whole is also a success story because Barry, a lot of the things happening in this film, like I said, are based on uh, Barry, and I asked him if I could say this. Some not so great things happened to him when he was younger, but now he's a successful writer director. He is Barry from Barry's Boot Camp, that successful gym franchise, and he has absolutely, um, has done the work, and uh, he said this before. He's like, I've found the way out of his trauma and his grief, and and now he's successfully doing what he's doing and helping other people through his experience and his story. So I think it's a success story in that Barry is an example of somebody that does not let their past define them, but moves on and challenges themselves to become, successful, capable human beings that help other people.
And that's a great message to have juxtaposed to the very intense film that this is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, so what's up next for you? Are you working on any other projects at the moment?
Yeah, yeah. I have a horror thriller with Randy Couture that's coming out this year called The Bellkeeper. And that's really exciting. I worked with Reed Miller on that, who did the Joe Bell movie with Mark Wahlberg. And then I have The Bay is an online series. It's a digital drama that I'm a part of. That's actually what I won the Emmy for last year for Best Supporting Actor, and season 7 is now released. It just released, so that's pretty exciting. And then I have a little romantic comedy, which is very different from this film, called The Engagement Dress, and that'll be out sometime this year. So yeah, luckily I have a handful of projects that are coming out, and they're all a little bit different. So it's sort of been a bit of a schizophrenic last year for me, filming all these different characters, but that's what keeps it fun and exciting and allows us to keep sort of stretching different muscles.
That's awesome. And congrats again on the Emmy.
Thank you.
If people want to stay connected with you and stay up to date with your work, what social media platforms are you on?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and then I have a public Facebook page for anybody that uses Facebook. And all of those are, I think if you just type my name, I think on Instagram I have it's like Mike underscore Manning underscore or something like that. But if you just type in my name, it's the first one that comes up. And then if they want more info on me, my website is mikemanning.info.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Um, before I let you go, is there anything else about The Way Out that we didn't touch on that you would like to add?
Not really. I just it was a film that, and you know this, every film takes a village, and a lot of people put a lot of work into this film. So the fact that it's getting the response that it's getting is really special to us. And so yeah, for anybody that watches it, tell people about it, please, because with indie films like this, word of mouth is so important. If they want to rate it on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or Amazon or whatever, wherever they can, that's really appreciated because that makes a difference. And yeah, thank you for taking the time to chat with me.